Hi, and welcome to this video where we'll be taking a look at the long-awaited new Dawesome synth, Myth. How can I begin to describe Myth? I've been asking myself that for a while now, as it's not easy to sum up Myth in a few words. It's deep, yet very tweakable. It's unique, yet has enough traditional synthesis elements up its sleeves so that those comfortable with more conventional synthesis methods don't feel lost initially. Perhaps it's easier to explain what Myth isn't. It's not a virtual analog recreation or a reimagined rompler. It's not for sample playback or acoustic emulations, and all that may mean that it's not for certain musicians who are looking for those sort of things. But then, for those who are looking to create unique sounds by exploration and by tweaking knobs, then Myth might just be your idea of synth heaven. Dawesome's line of synths have been building a loyal fan base of enthusiastic users, and for them, Myth is sure to tick all the boxes. Myth is unashamedly a synth that could only exist in software form. Its synth engine takes a novel and non-linear approach that rewards experimentation and can sound gnarly and angry, subtle and soft, and everything in between. With such a fresh approach to synthesis, you may initially feel overwhelmed or out of your depth. I certainly did, as I was involved in a small way in some of the pre-release versions of Myth. But I'm delighted to report that Myth comes with probably the best user guide I've seen for a soft synth. And on top of that, the synth itself has tutorials built in, so that initial head-scratching phase is kept to a minimum. So rather than going into great detail, consider this a brief overview of Myth. The first thing you can't help but notice are the two irises at the top of the screen. The iris is a visual representation of an imported waveform that is resynthesized on import by Myth. So this is not sample playback, this is an analysis of the sound material which is approximated into the synthesis engine within Myth. The user guide goes into greater details about the processes involved. Looking at the iris itself, you can think of the beginning of the original sample at the 12 o'clock position. You can modulate the newly synthesized tone using, say, an LFO, or clicking on the iris itself. The play position is represented by the blue lines. Underneath the iris are the transformers, the top row of which are largely for performing FM-based operations on the tone. The tooltips will keep you on track as to what all the symbols represent. The lower row transform the sound in a variety of ways that are more straightforward and less intimidating than FM to a beginner. But if you've overdone the FM and created some harsh overtones, then at the end of the row is the pure control that can soften some of the resulting tones. Of course, all the transformers can be modulated in the usual Dawesome fashion. It's straightforward, flexible, and easy to keep track of by using the modulation matrix. So looking at the signal flow diagram from the user guide, you can see that iris 1 and 2 each flow into an oscillator section, then to a filter section, before reaching 2 effect sections. So let's have a look at each of them in order. The oscillator section, remember there are 2 of them, is very flexible. Just look at the options available. If I were to spend just a minute on each module, then this section of the video alone would be around half an hour long. So forgive me if I pick out some of the highlights. It's worth noting that you can add filters, modulation and distortion effects at the oscillator stage. The wave generator lets you add virtual analog style waveforms with unison, detune and spread. You're free to change the running order of the modules, and each module has its own preset section. The utility section is needed to keep levels and EQ in check for such potentially complex signal chains, and there's even an OTT multiband compressor. Incidentally, when you're building complex chains, I'd recommend enabling the limiter in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. It's easy to get carried away and let levels build up. So the two oscillator sections feed into the filter section, and yet again, just look at all the modules available. Even selecting a low-pass filter presents you with multiple choices. The multi-filter offers low-pass, high-pass, bandpass and notch. It also has a dual mode offering two filters either in parallel or series, and an offset knob to dial in the difference between the two cutoff values. There are comb filters, a vowel filter, useful for choir-like tones, and two interesting effects, modal and resonator, which almost deserve a video to themselves. So let's have a look at the resonator in a little more detail. I've set up a simple sawtooth on oscillator 1, no unison, and that's feeding into the filter, which at the moment has the resonator loaded. So if we actually, you can select from a variety of waveforms here, which will have their frequencies imparted onto the waveform, the original waveform. So let's demonstrate that. If I select octave tempura, you can hear it's gradually imposing itself on the sawtooth, and if I put track, it will track up and down the keyboard. And in harmonics adds inharmonic frequencies, which might be useful for bell tones, etc. And if I select pitch, so let's take that up an octave. So now we've got a totally transformed sound from the original sawtooth. This is one example where the limiter might be a good idea because it's very easy to drive things to very high levels indeed. The BTTF back to the FM module makes an appearance here with controls such as Biff, McFly and the flux capacitor.
Great Scott!
So I can't resist it. Let's have a look at the back to the FM module. This is similar to the FM controls here, but for the regular waveforms in the oscillator. So if I increase Biff, you can hear it supplying FM to the sound. McFly. Is the ratio for the modulation. And flux, as it says down at the bottom of the screen, the amount of delay for the feedback FM. Heavy. It's sort of regular FM. And if we listen to the original sawtooth again, you'll see we've taken it quite a long way. So following after the filter section, the voices are summed and fed into two parallel effects sections. In addition to some of the earlier effects modules from the oscillator and filter sections, the excellent clouds reverb is included, along with a shimmer and a conventional reverb. A couple of adventurous effects such as loophole and grains are also included. Grains is derived from the swarm mode of Dawesome's Love effects plugin, and loophole is, well, you just have to try it really. Finally, the bizarrely named Glurp module is allegedly modelled after the Glurpy Glorp, which was invented in the 1920s. Sounds like something from a Rick and Morty episode to me.
Man, that guy is the Redgrin Grumbolt of pretending he knows what's going on.
I almost forgot the ARP section. You've probably guessed already that this section offers more than simple arpeggios. This patch is an example showing the chord and scale devices in action. I'm playing single notes, but the chord module adds multiple transposed notes to it, and the scale device comes with plenty of predefined scales. So if we take a deep breath, I hope I've conveyed the enormous capabilities and future potential of Myth. I'm sure sound designers and adventurous synth programmers will still be creating sounds for it for many years into the future. On the subject of sounds, it comes with hundreds of them, according to this 717. There's even a method for the breeding of new presets from ones that you've filtered out in the Browse tab, and you can freeze sections that you want to remain untouched. It's hard not to be impressed by Myth, by its capabilities, by the huge array of sounds, by the clever design allowing easy editing of such a complex beast. But this is one of those synths that you really need to try out the demo version. Dawesome has always had a generous 90-day unconstrained demo period. If you hear a noise every few minutes, simply register at traction.com and select Start Trial to enable the full demo duration. A demo is a good idea due to the sheer scale of the synth and to find out if it'll suit your style of music. As I said at the beginning, this is no rompler or virtual analog. This is a fresh and refreshing approach to synthesis that might take a few days experimentation to grow on you. I didn't experience any CPU problems on my PC, but it is an up-to-date model, so if you have an older setup, be sure to try the demo. There is an eco setting and a smart mode that may help in that regard. So, how to sum up Myth? It really is a synth that invites and rewards experimentation, and I'm sure will stay fresh for years due to its flexible architecture and unique methodology. I'd urge anyone to try out the 90-day demo. It will take some time to work out your own approach, and even if you're a presets type of user, it'll take a fair time to audition the 700 odd presets that are included. Please like, comment and subscribe if you feel drawn to do so. Subscribing is free and it helps me make more content and keep adverts to a minimum. So until the next video, thanks for watching.